Welcome to Insights into Northeast Michigan, a WBKB News public affairs program. Insights deals with the issues affecting those within the community, as well as Northeast Michigan and the state. And now, Insights into Northeast Michigan.
Welcome to Insights. I'm Sherry Stewart. So you may have heard that the nation's real estate market is red hot right now. Today, we're going to take a look at what's driving this surge and what you should do to best position yourself, whether buying or selling. Joining me to kick off today's discussion is Dr. Lawrence Yoon, Chief Economist and Senior Vice President of Research at the National Association of Realtors. Dr. Yoon, thank you for joining me today.
Hello, Sherry. Thanks for inviting.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Yoon, we're hearing from realtors that they've never seen a market like this in a long time. Now, given that we're still in a pandemic, what is actually driving this surge?
It is quite a surprise. If we remember last year, 2020, pandemic, high unemployment, but one positive economic sector was the housing. So when the economy reopened, the consumers were facing record low mortgage rates and further falling mortgage rates, simply too good to give up. So people wanted to take advantage of locking in at low rates. That brought up the demand. Now there's also a possibility that the work from home flexibility could be a new feature of the post-pandemic economy. And hence people are saying, look, I don't have to live so close to a major city. I can be further away.
Yeah, and that's something that we had seen too, is that the way we actually work has impacted the way we live and where we live.
It's unclear as to how the CEOs and top managers deciding on, you bring the workers back 5 days a week, office workers. But by the way, the office workers have been fairly immune throughout the pandemic. We saw the restaurant workers get hurt, people working at the hotel get hurt, and the travel industry. But the office workers have been fairly immune during the recession, and they were able to work from home. And some people say, look, we have a vacation home or lake home out in northern Michigan, or maybe they want to go to grandma's house, but they could clearly work further away. And even with the vaccination making great progress, I think it's hard to envision how a CEOs would say, come back to work 5 days a week when office workers have demonstrated equal or if not better productivity working from home.
Well, let's delve into some of the regions. So we just a couple days ago received some preliminary census data. It showed that the South actually grew the most in terms of population over this past decade. Is that region still experiencing that same growth in terms of the housing market?
Housing is driven by the population. So if there's people moving into a certain region naturally raises the demand for housing. People have to live someplace. And consistently over the past 20 years, we have seen that the southern states outpace the northern states by a percentage point or two in terms of the overall sales growth. And this trend is likely to continue just for the simple fact that especially among the baby boomers who are now nearing retirement age, and as they consider retirement destination, some may consider warmer weather states. But I have been to northern Michigan. It's a beautiful place and quiet. So I think other people will consider a more quiet, peaceful condition in places like northern Michigan.
And yeah, you say that. We've also heard that given the pandemic, that folks actually want to spread out a little bit. And so certainly our region offers that. What do you have to say about that in terms of the housing market?
The high density living in the midst of a pandemic, those are high risk propositions. So we saw, for example, in San Francisco or New York City, where people essentially moved out quite quickly to wherever they could find that temporary housing or living with some family members elsewhere. But now that we have better understanding of the coronavirus, how to catch it or how to avoid it, as well as the fact that one do not have to commute to downtown office every single day. And hence, I think people want to have a more wider space, larger size home, And certainly in northern Michigan, people can get larger size home at affordable prices. So that's a great advantage that you have.
Absolutely. Let's talk for a minute, take a step back, looking several years back, 2007, the housing market. Would you say, Dr. Yoon, that we potentially, is that something that you have on your radar screen too, to look at, are we foreseeing a housing boom? It's great now, but we know what happened in 2007, 2008. So what are your thoughts on that?
Those are a very valid, good question, because we don't want to have a repeat of a housing market boom followed by a foreclosure crisis for people to lose home. That is an absolutely painful period. So we don't want to have a repeat of that. So what are some similarities or differences now versus then? Well, one thing is we don't have those funny, risky mortgages anymore. Subprime lending, which essentially overstretch people's budget. It had an adjustable rate mortgage, which means the monthly payment could rise the next month, depending on how interest rate move. But in today's market, everyone is essentially taking out that 30-year fixed rate mortgage. The monthly payment is fixed, and they are forced to stay within budget. So that's one key difference. Another the difference is that back in 07 or the years preceding to that period, home builders went wild, building right and left. But this time, home builders have been quite restrained. In fact, people are saying that home builders have underproduced for multiple years, which is the reason why we have housing shortage and therefore prices rising sizably.
So it sounds like we have a combination of a couple things. We don't have those risky loan products, and we have the builders that are, as you say, being a little bit more restrained this time around.
Fundamentally a different backdrop. Even though for some first-time buyers, they may face multiple offers, meaning they're competing with other buyers for same property, putting in that escalation clause. But the underlying factor, we have sound lending criteria along with lack of supply. So that is saying that home prices are on firm ground, probably going to increase further, but I hope that we have increased supply, more home building, so that we can adequately satisfy this strong housing demand.
Absolutely. And Dr. Yoon, in the time that we have left, can you tell us a little bit about the folks that are actually purchasing the homes? Are we living more multi-generationally, given the fact that we have, in some areas, a limited supply of housing? What are your thoughts on that? What is the composite of folks that are purchasing, if you can give us that?
Well, the inventory is short, and it's particularly short in the starter home market. So that's where the multiple offers are most prevalent. But at the same time, people are becoming very creative. And some people are saying, well, to make the numbers work, maybe we should get a multi-generational housing. Maybe we bring in the grandmother. Some people don't like the idea of nursing home, especially in light of the pandemic, which went through it. So that's also another consideration. So we saw a demand rise for much larger size home with the intent of having a multi-generation family members living together.
Dr. Yoon, we are out of time. We want to thank you for spending time with us today to share such great information about our national housing market. Dr. Lawrence Yoon, Chief Economist and Senior Vice President of Research at the National Association of Realtors. Again, thank you, Doctor. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Insights will return after these messages.
Welcome back to Insights. I'm Sherry Stewart. We're going to spend the remainder of our time today here at Banner Realty in Alpena speaking with Margie Hudson. She is the broker and owner. Thank you for having us today, Margie.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
You know, we just heard from Dr. Yoon. He's the chief economist with the National Association of Realtors, and he laid out the big picture of what's really driving the market. And some of the things that he mentioned were low interest rates, lessons learned from the past, you know, an evaporation of those the bad loan products from 2007 and 2008, low inventory, and the pandemic that's changed how and where we live. So we actually have a few more options with a lot of remote learning. So with that, Margie, are those factors relevant for Northeast Michigan? What's really happening as we look at our local market?
Well, I would say the interest rate being low is a real motivator for buyers right now. And in the COVID situation did play a part in this, and I think it's what happened that stopping so many people from wanting to list or for listing. Like last year, we weren't able to go out and even take shots of homes that were empty or go out and show vacant property. So the transition of what was going on and the momentum really across America, maybe the world even, of people moving in transition. So the transition stopped.
Okay.
So that's a segment that's always moving, but now it's not, and then they had to decide if they wanted to start up again. We also have a lot of rules when we go into houses and what the seller should have prepared for us, and also the way the buyer would come in. We also always have to have a covering on our face, a mask. And if anyone has, and we ask people if they've had any flu, temperatures, or have been exposed to COVID, because we don't want anyone to be exposed to it and get it. So we're really careful in making that happen. Here in our office, we actually take temperatures and make sure that we ask the number of questions so that our office is protected.
Absolutely. And so you have a long history in the real estate market, 40 years yourself, 30 some odd years for the business itself. So when you see these changes, are these positive changes? Are you just, you're skilled in going with what's happening, being able to prepare your staff and your other folks working with you?
Well, every market has changed. I mean, I think in the 70s, we were looking at a market that was like 18% interest in 19, and it kind of made it really difficult for buyers to buy houses because no one can quite afford that price and interest rates. And then we moved into the 2008, 2009, where sellers couldn't find buyers, and we were really motivating and trying to get buyers to buy. And now we're in a market that is definitely a seller's market, and over a seller's market actually, and that people that will list, and they do list with us, stand a greater chance of making more money because we have the opportunity to take in a number of offers. And so when the offer comes in, we might have between 5 and maybe 8 or more. And I've talked to people around the nation that's certified residential specialists like I am, and we are a group of people, and I hear what they're saying, and they have had as high as 55 different offers in these big metropolitan areas. That's kind of hard to deal with. But in this market, really in any market, we're all agreeing that cash is king.
Right.
So if somebody comes in with cash and someone comes in as a new person in the market that maybe can only afford 5% down or maybe like a VA loan or an FHA loan, they don't get at the top of the list when the seller is trying to consider. They get sort of at the bottom of the list. And so we might put one in first place and one in second place in case the first one doesn't go through for whatever reason, because God only knows our times and circumstances. And so we just are. And also, sometimes sellers are differently motivated too. Sometimes it isn't the highest price, but sometimes it's the terms that the people offer. Whether they can stay in the house longer, free of rent, maybe they don't have a home inspection. There's a number of different aspects that an agent can design the purchase agreement to be interesting for the seller to consider. And even at that, sometimes they don't. There are people that have put in offers, like maybe 5 or 6 offers, and they have all been declined. I'm working right now with a relative out of town that wants to come to Alpena, and he's just starting out. He doesn't want to spend all of his money, and so he wants to get in with 5 or 10% down, and he's actually gone over the price, and he has not gotten an offer bottom line yet. So I would say to buyers, you have to be patient in this market, and eventually it will happen, but at this point in time, you have to, and I feel bad. Like there was one offer that I knew on a house, and 3 of us in our own office had offers on the house. And so I knew that at least 2 of those people will not get it, and I don't know whether any of us would, because there's a couple other offers with it. And so that makes it a little bit difficult, because that there's going to be a buyer out there that's not going to be happy. Several of them, in fact.
Right. Absolutely.
So In that way, it's tough. Otherwise, your question was, what is this market like? It's exciting because we can be, we're challenged to do new things, challenged to be thinking and studying, and to know and to understand what the market has done, what other people are doing in the market in other areas. And so we can be astute in what we do, and we represent the seller and also the buyer.
Now, you unpacked a lot there, but you really gave us some good intel on what it's like to be in a bidding war for a new home. So now we understand that those bids are ranked. Okay, and so if you're coming in with just the 3 to 5% or perhaps a VA loan, you may not be at the top of the list of consideration for the seller.
Yes, because those loans usually require more government scrutiny.
Right.
And if you have a 20%, either if there's something that's wrong with this or that, they usually skim over it because the buyer can handle it financially. And the other ones, they may not be able to handle it. So the government protects them in their loan on the secondary market with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac.
Well, we've got a lot more to unpack, Margie. When we come back, we want to talk about what are some of the opportunities for the first-time home buyers. So as you say, you're probably not at the top of the list if you're just starting out. So what is the strategy for folks that are just now getting in the market? We'll talk about that when we come back.
Insights will return after these messages.
Welcome back to Insights. We're continuing our conversation with Margie Hudson here at Banner Realty in Alpena. And I know at the break you were talking about explaining to us how the bids are ranked. And so you have some tips for first-time home buyers, folks that are just now getting in the market. And I know one of the things you mentioned before the break was to have some patience. But beyond that, what is the strategy if you're just now getting in a sizzling hot real estate market?
Well, I would advise them to make sure that their credit is really rated high, because that gives them also an advantage in the mortgage that they will be receiving. They should have a pre-qualification letter, absolutely, and have the confidence of the person, the mortgage lender that's lending the money, that they are solid people and that they will be able to get their loan. And there won't be a lot of unknowns, let's say.
And disappointment.
And disappointments, yes, that arise. So that would be probably the first thing that I would say, and that they need to know what their debt to income ratio is. And like say, hypothetically, if the house is 75 and they can afford 75 and all the offers come in, and I saw one that was at 75 come in at 90,000 cash. So it's kind of like, you know which one they're going to take. And so even though they're maybe at 75, but the other offers are higher, most sellers will take the highest. Some sellers are in the market because they've got a house refurbished, and obviously it's their investment. And so when they have an investment, they would like to have the best return, and so they will take the highest bid. So even though they're qualified for 75, they may be farther ahead to go and look at a house that's 55 or 65 and be able to bid it up then, and then to have a little more pull in the marketplace, should you say. And those houses go really fast. I mean, it's usually within a very, very short time, like 5 days a week would be long on some of these lower priced houses.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, and you may have answered. It's like, how long on average are homes, just say in this region, how long are they actually staying on the market?
Not long at all. If they're overpriced, of course, then they will be on the market over 10 or 12 days. And those might be the houses, when I was doing my reading and trying to get tips for all incomes, all the people in the marketplace, the higher and the lower, they suggested don't go in with something that just came on the market because your chances are really less. If you go in with something that's been on the market like 14 days or longer, maybe that one's priced out high and that the buyer would be willing to, or the seller would be willing to work with you because he hasn't got an offer. So, and I thought that was good advice, actually. And it hasn't happened before, but this is one of those markets that it might make good sense. Also, it might make sense for them to rent if they can find a rental until they can, get the 20% down. But this market will not always stay. Our market is fluctuating, just like the stock market. Sometimes it's the sellers, sometimes it's the buyers, and sometimes it's a low overload, and then sometimes, like now, we don't have much inventory.
Yeah, that's what I'm told, that there's just definitely not a lot of inventory out there. So back to how you're getting your home ready to go on the market. We talked about some of the tips for those that are looking to purchase. Definitely first-time home buyers, make sure you get your credit up to snuff. But what about if you're ready to put your home on the market? What are some of the things that we need to do? Is it about staging, making sure that your price pointed right? What are your recommendations there?
All of the above. Yes. Well, the more you can make it, it's like the cars. They get the cars all polished up and looking pretty. Well, you do the same thing with a house, if you can. And I think the entrance of the house is really important, so that everything is clean. Everything, the door is clean. It's painted. It's fresh.
Sure.
That's your first impression. And we also give tips of, that the house would smell as, you're not going to want to have sauerkraut or fish, when you're going to have a showing on an upper end listing or anything like that. And, have it bright, cheery. That is the curtains pulled, the lights on. Sometimes it's nice to have a little music in the background. Not loud, that would be distracting, but just kind of comfortable music. And the fireplace, and it's cool, you put the fireplace on, a few things like that I think are helpful. And we are trained to help people stage houses. So if they're not sure if the house is ready to show, they can just call us, and we'd be happy to say, if you do this, it will be cost justified, or if you do that, or not do this, or move this here, or move this there, the room will look larger. And rearrange the plants. And sometimes, it's a fun thing to do. And sometimes when a house is empty, I have a lot of staging things in my back room there that I bring in so that the house looks comfortable and it looks happy to greet the person coming in with nice rugs and plants like this. And,
Makes it enticing.
It makes it homey.
Absolutely.
And so we have a lot of people coming out from downstate wanting to be in this area and have high-speed internet. And the more high-speed internet we can get on the surrounding areas out of the city, the more people that will come here. And and there are people that are moving up, people that are newly married. It's just and people that that have a big house wanting to move down, people wanting to get into condos. And so there's a lot of different reasons, as there has been through the years, of why people are motivated to move or come in.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you're going to be busy for a long, long time.
Yeah, I hope so. I love the business, I love the people, and I've got a tremendous staff here, which I'm really thankful for.
Absolutely. Well, we have enjoyed speaking with you today, Margie, giving us the intel, sharing those nuggets with us today. So thank you again.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Sherry.
Well, that's all we have for you this week. If you have a question, comment, or story idea, we'd love to hear from you. You can email us at news@wbkb11.com. I'm Sherry Stewart. Thank you again for watching, and have a great week.
Insights into Northeast Michigan is produced by WBKB News. This has been a production of Thunder Bay Broadcasting Corporation. All rights reserved.